Welcome back to Leaders Live. How's everybody doing today? We got a great show. David Moreno is coming on the show, entrepreneur, attorney, sports agent. But before we get to David and talk to him, we're going to have a quick word from Michael Mara, CEO of Entre, our partner on the show. Mike, over to you.
Charlie. Yeah, I'm excited for another Leaders Live. David's a fantastic entrepreneur, and we've grown friendship over the last couple of years. So I'm super pumped for this interview. It's going to be another exciting Leaders Live episode. If you guys don't know much about Entre, we're obviously streaming it live on some of our platforms and also Charlie's LinkedIn. So definitely drop some comments in, ask some questions for David throughout the interview. And so if this is your first time watching one of our events or being part of our platform, we do a bunch of these virtual events, interviews that Charlie does with Leaders Live. We do panels. We're doing a pitch competition tomorrow night, workshops, all sorts of stuff for entrepreneurs and startups. And we're really just trying to connect everyone and make entrepreneurship a little bit easier, a little bit more accessible to the masses. We just rolled out our app, which is a social network where you can connect, find co-founders, developers, mentors, easier and faster, post content, create events, post jobs, all sorts of cool stuff. And we're giving out early access to that. And we just rolled it out on our website too. So if you just go to joinentre.com, you can find it there, and feel free to reach out to us if you need help with anything, need help fundraising, need help starting your company. Let us know. We're here to help. And you guys are in good hands with Charlie and David. So I'll pass it back over to you guys and enjoy the show.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Yes. Definitely download the Entre app. Let's bring in David Moreno, our guest for today. David, how you doing?
Hey, Charlie. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. It seems like you're doing a little nicer. Got the outdoor setup. I'm pretty jealous right now. I'm in my my in-laws' house in my wife's old bedroom with the Hummels in the background, but you got a good setup.
Definitely a strange place for one's spouse to be, right?
Yeah, right. So co-founder of Mediabundance, you're entrepreneur, attorney, sports agent, you do it all. So we got a lot to talk about today. I'm excited for today's show. Appreciate you coming on. But let's just start off by, can you give a little context of how you got here, where you came from, and what you were doing before Mediabundance?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually born and raised on Long Island. I'm not going to give you guys the long-winded story about my childhood, but professionally, I started my career as a prosecutor in the Manhattan DA's office, which was a little bit of a shift in what I wanted to do initially when I went to law school. I actually went to University of Miami School of Law at the time, right out of college. And ironically, things come full circle. I was really impassioned about social justice and, how I could make a change and help to, bridge some of the gaps in regards to systemic discriminations and implicit bias. And I went to law school with the idea that I would someday get into politics and ultimately, use my voice to become a prosecutor while the DA's office. Created a couple of programs to help in terms of alternatives to incarceration for, youths that were being charged with crimes. Spent 4.5 years there. It was a great job to learn, great job to do some justice and, make sure that, you safeguard, some of the most valuable rights that folks have in this country. From there, I went to the law office of Spar and Bernstein, where I'm, currently a partner as well. I ran their criminal defense practice. I also founded the sports and entertainment practice while I was there. And I'll get into this as we talk, Charlie, but it was all a function of just having credibility in one space that really opened the door to get to a number of other spaces. Probably the question I get the most, being an agent and as one of my businesses, a lot of folks are interested in sports. They always want to know, well, how do you get a job in sports, right? And a job in sports really it can mean anything. But for me, it was, staying true to what I was actually good at and, took a role kind of building out based on the criminal defense practice and started out representing a few athletes in small, misdemeanor cases, and it became a few celebrities. And then from there, it became arbitrations against Major League Baseball and those sort of things. So I used that to kind of break into the sports industry, and I'm the executive vice president of a sports agency based in Edgewater, New Jersey. And more recently, obviously co-founded Mediabundance with my partners, Michael Momola and David Meltzer.
Right. A lot on there and very impressive stuff. And I'm excited to kind of talk about a lot of the stuff you're talking about, opening the doors. But let's give a shout out to Mediabundance. Let's talk about what you're doing with Mike Momola, David Meltzer, your co-founders. It's a consulting agency for Fortune 100 companies, and dabbling in esports, dabbling in sports media. Kind of how would you frame Mediabundance so everyone can understand what you're doing?
Yeah, Mediabundance is it's a blessing, number one, to be where we are. I think it's a culmination of the backgrounds of all of the partners, and we're happy to welcome David Chen, who's the founder of NACL, the North American Collegiate League, who's now an esports partner. So we're basically leveraging the relationship capital and the situational knowledge cumulatively of all of us involved. David Meltzer, our partner and chairman of our board, obviously, has a tremendous background. And what we do at Mediabundance, we really focus on trying to bring abundance, right? That's part of the name, bring abundance to companies of any size. We do work with some of the larger companies. We partnered up with SAP. We're one of the next gen companies moving forward, but we work with a lot of startups. We work with a lot of entrepreneurs directly, one-on-one, everything from business coaching, consulting to entrepreneurs and their companies as well, to help build from a perspective, branding perspective, any way that we can increase their share of their market, whether it be helping them get funding, bringing new ideas, sitting on the boards, those sorts of things. So we're working with companies, as you alluded to, Charlie, in the esports space. We just partnered up with North American Collegiate League, which is a collegiate esports league that's got to deal with a number of conferences as well as multiple universities in the United States. They also are the only esports league with streaming rights in 10 countries in Asia, which anybody that's done anything over in Asia, they know how big of a deal that is. We also are in the tech space. We work with a number of apps that deal with everything from wellness to just, communication and chatting, to traditional sports and marketing, and branding and media. So we're really involved in a number of different things. We're EPing a feature film. It's all a function of, honestly, being at the right place at the right time, building tremendous credibility within your network, and knowing the right people to sometimes even just connect the dots and stay out the way.
Yeah, you're pushing innovation as well. I mean, that's what I like to think of you guys. You have a strong network. You actually helped partner with us on a founders night over at 10 Hudson Yards, SAP's office, which is greatly appreciated, bringing together some real thought leaders and like-minded individuals and trying to put some, partnership deals together. So it's exciting, a lot of things we're doing, and also the partnership with GTIF, North American Collegiate League, in the esports. Definitely check that out, because David Chen is a real leader and thought leader in that world as well. The NFL agency side, I mean, you talked about everybody's always looking to get into the sports world. You're in it, you're helping, athletes, coaches, or whoever it may be, add value and put together partnership deals. How do you create this value for, the clients that you work with, and, kind of give us some context of that world you live in as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, every time I enter into any arena, I want to diagnose how I can actually make a difference. I don't want to enter into a situation and bring the same exact thing that, the 50 people or the 50 predecessors before me brought. So with the sports business, it was actually a really interesting kind of journey. I played, collegiate sports. I played basketball at a pretty decent level. Was recruited, quote unquote, by agents. And for me, one of my biggest pain points when evaluating them was, feeling like they sometimes were like car salesmen. And, throughout my legal career, having worked with athletes on a professional side, on the legal side, I also got a chance to interact with their agencies one-on-one and sort of got a chance to see where there were some gaps. And what I found, and this is, not for every agency, everybody's situation is different. I think a lot of agencies you'll see will move towards this, in the future. But historically, there's been a trend where, the agents have been very concerned with what's going on with the athletes on the field, and to a lesser extent, maybe with the football players, some of the off the field marketing, but that's really it, right? So I look at it like this: no matter what sport you play, you could be Tom Brady and play 20 some odd years. You could be Vince Carter and play 20 some odd years. Those guys are the exceptions and not the rule. I know we've all heard it. Anybody that played football ever, even if you were in Pop Warner and you're 6 years old, you were told the NFL was not for long, no matter how far off of an actual reasonable or realistic path that was for you. It's absolutely true. No matter how long you play in any sport, you're going to be doing something else, I can almost assure you, for a lot longer, right? So one of my big things is, how do I create generational wealth off the field, off the court? And I try to use the impressive and the massive brands that athletes have, right? We live in a society right now that values, look at everything with the pandemic. Sports went off. Granted, we're dealing with social injustice issues, but for the first few months, people were going crazy in terms of what they can watch and not having sports to consume. So I try to help athletes leverage their brands while they're playing to get into situations and get their foot into the doors for the businesses they want to do when they're done playing. One of the ways that I do so, I'm a big proponent of education and not reinventing the wheel. It's very, very, very important to me and paramount to keep your athletes as informed and as educated as possible. What do I mean? I actually created a retreat for the athletes. The agency I'm part of, we've got about 15 guys in the NFL from all different levels, from Pro Bowlers to guys in their third contract to guys that are just breaking in the league or maybe even on practice squads. We vetted out the players. We tried to figure out what were the industries that they were interested in getting involved in. Obviously, high net worth individuals, maybe those without, MBAs especially, are going to be easy targets for individuals that are looking to prey on maybe the naive, quote unquote, investor. So instead of allowing them to just get into any investment without having the background and the knowledge, we vetted them out to what they were interested in. So we got a consensus: commercial real estate, franchising. So we brought all the players out to Vegas. Within throughout my network, I partner at the agency's network, and the greater network of Mediabundance and my partners there, we were able to bring in a number of different people from each different field to educate the players, right, on what does it mean to have a pre-investment IPO or how to evaluate a commercial real estate deal, even everything down to having an accountant come in to talk about the changes in the tax laws and where you should homestead versus a lot of folks don't realize if you play and live in a high tax state, you're going to be taxed in every single state that you play in, not just like a normal 9-to-5 job where you live and work in New York and that's it. If you're playing the NFL or NBA, you're going to have to pay taxes in all those different places. So it's really important to educate them on those sorts of things. So for me, it's really important to build the structure so people are consistently learning throughout their career, so that if and when they're ready to make the jump, they're fully informed and they're making correct and strong decisions. So for me, coming into the agency world, I wanted to figure out how I can leverage my tremendous relationship capital to benefit the athletes to become more entrepreneurial in spirit.
Well, how about this? Now you're educating them, which is the huge part of it, and you're bringing the network and the relationships into it. How do you look at growth, both personally and business? How do you advise them in that? And we have a lot of startups that are a part of the Entre network, and I'm sure they would want to hear this too, but how do you look at growth? How can you continue to build the business, build your personal self, and evolve?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the first thing, it goes back to the same thing I just said. Number one, always be learning, right? Number two, and probably number two should be number one, you should always, and Dave Meltzer, my partner, is a big proponent of this, you should always have solid mentors, right? You should have at least 3 to 5 mentors at any given time in your life. Have mentors in the positions that you want to sit in, right? We live in a world where now everybody is accessible to you, right? When we were growing up, Charlie, and I know it seems like the not too distant past, but I couldn't just go online and reach out to the CEO of a Fortune 100 company. But with LinkedIn now you can. And LinkedIn even makes it easier, right? Because they're able to help you find a common thread. So you go and say, I want to reach out to the CEO of, I don't know, Home Depot. You can see right away where that person went to school. So they give you the fodder to have that common ground to where you may be able to connect with someone. But to take it away from such a vague and abstract place, start with your mentors that are close to you. Start within your own family. Ask, tell people what you're involved in. And I think that's one thing that a lot of us, struggle with, especially early on when we're beginning our journey as entrepreneurs, is that we don't let enough people know what we're actually doing. And that was something that I struggle with. And, you hear all these things kind of growing up. You don't want to block your blessings by talking about things before they actually happen. But I want to stop that narrative right now. The more you put it out into the universe that you're doing X, and I think, Grant Cardone, Dave Meltzer, a number of folks that are truly inspirational, motivational speakers, believe in speaking your blessings into existence. Number one. Number two, you're informing the world what you're doing. And number three, there's almost always unequivocally going to be someone in that network that you have given that message to that knows someone else that can help you. So it's very simple for all young entrepreneurs out there. Reach out to your network. You don't have to be disingenuous or fake, but the folks that you've made strong connections with, let them know, hey, I'm doing X. Do you know anyone that, may be able to get a benefit from this service? Or do you know anybody that can point me in the right direction or can teach me more so that I can have more credibility in actually what I'm doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to look at the mentorship too, is you have the ability for podcasts. I mean, I was listening to a podcast with Kevin Hart last night, and I mean, it was super inspirational. He's not a mentor of mine, but he kind of is virtually, if you, whoever it may be you're listening to and trying to evolve. So that's super helpful. I like that a lot. What about the execution part of it? I mean, when you have the knowledge, you have the mentorship, the leverage around it. I mean, I know you mentioned this before too, the execution, you got to finish and you got to go after it, right? I mean, how do you look at that? I mean,
yeah, well, for me, I come from a field in the law, which is generally pretty rigid, and your name is your brand, right? Yeah. Whereas in most other fields, your face is your brand. In the law, your name is your brand. So if you think about it that way, is no matter what you do as an attorney, your work product is going to be consistent with your name. So you have to establish credibility that no matter what, I know David Moreno, when he's in the courtroom, he's a hell of a trial lawyer, right? So you have to establish the credibility that's consistent with the person that you want to be. You can build an amazing brand, but if it's actually not credible, eventually it's gonna die down. Folks are gonna stop engaging with you. They're gonna stop following you. They're not gonna, repost. Dave Meltzer has a great name for these individuals that help promote your message. He calls them ambassadors. If you're actually not credible, if you don't have valuable content, if you're not bringing value to someone else, then you're no longer gonna have ambassadors. And while you may create a niche brand that's a flash in the pan, kind of akin to a one-hit wonder in music, it's not going to have lasting power or staying power. So just to go back into it, being a Renaissance man, being involved in a number of different industries is awesome. I think the older generation always would tell you, be careful, don't be a jack of all trades and a master of none. Our generation has kind of, tested that a little bit and pushed it to the barriers. But the main thing with that is as long as you have credibility in your main area of focus, you can start to venture out and go into other places, but it always has to happen in due time. You got to master one thing before you move on to the next. If not, you're not going to have success with either one.
You were saying opening new doors. I mean, that's a great way to look at it. Absolutely. Let's talk about we're at a turning point in this country right now with systemic racism and injustice, everything that's going on there. It's actually pissing me off quite a bit. And, I think you got to look at right now, there's racists out there and there's people who are not. And that's kind of the battle that's happening. Mm-hmm. And you also mentioned while you were attorney, I mean, this is what you practiced. And I wanted to hear kind of from your point, how do we bridge that gap of social justice and how do we move forward? What steps do we need to take to move forward?
Charlie, number one, I appreciate you asking that. Number two, if you're not pissed off, then something's really wrong, right? Yeah. I think that any human, seeing injustice done to any human should be pissed off and not tolerate it. And that's exactly the energy that we need, right? Dr. King famously said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So no matter what group you identify with, right? And we got to remember that race, religion, gender, sexuality, those are all social constructs, right? That people identify with. But at the end of the day, we're all humans, right? So the number one thing that I think that we need to do right now to really help to really move this forward is action. We have to take the action that's consistent with who we are. Every single person needs to do their part to stand up against hatred, right? That means that there's no more passes for, off-color jokes, because all those things do is they feed the fire of the implicit biases that are rooted in the base of those jokes. What that means is, we got to stop it right in its tracks when you see it. What that means is, no matter what you're doing, big or small, is you've got to get involved. So we have those who are out peaceful protesting. That's amazing. Folks like myself, I decided to use my platform, which is I'm an attorney, obviously, first and foremost. I'm offering pro bono legal to those who have been arrested improperly while protesting. We know that, some of the, wealthy entertainers and celebrities are using their voice. They're paying the bail for individuals that are getting arrested. That's a beautiful thing when everybody does their part. But the other thing is, we really need to spend time educating individuals, right? Whether that be through panels, through conversations like this with you and I. We don't share the same racial background, right? But you and I are colleagues, we're friends. Having discussions like this, it opens the eyes of individuals that may be naive or have a certain predisposed notion of what a black man is in America, or what a Chinese man is, or what a Jewish female is. We have to break all of that down back to the simple thing that we're all just humans, right? We're all Americans. And even, breaking it down more than that, forget about American or Mexican or Canadian, because you can use any of those things to fuel the fire for hate or to justify your actions. We're all human beings, and we have to treat each other the way we want to be treated. And I know this is a lesson that we all learned when we were children, but it's as simple as that. In terms of the systemic discrimination and, law enforcement, it's an incredibly tough job, right? I've worked, with police officers as a prosecutor. I know a lot of people have the notion that, prosecutors work for the police officers. Most good and ethical prosecutors do not. In fact, the prosecutor actually represents the people of the city of New York. So if there's a situation, or prosecutor represents the jurisdiction where they're working, excuse me. If there's a situation where a police officer is doing something wrong, the prosecutor's job and duty is to make sure that police officer is held accountable. So what I'm trying to say in regards to prosecutors and the police is, we got to shift from inside, right? So the problem with the police that we have in America is not necessarily the folks that are entering the force. It's the culture of the force. It's the things that are allowed to happen within that start to create this bigger and bigger and bigger snowball effect, right? So I know there's been a number of different studies that said community policing is a solution, where you have police that are consistent with the demographic of the individuals and the constituents that they're policing. That is a start. However, we have to change the way we teach police how to police and what is a justifiable use of force. And ultimately, at the end of the day, everyone will have an easier time if we're just better to one another all around, right? We don't have to go to police. It's just day to day be better to someone.
That's right. That's right. And it comes back to the education as well. I mean, on all sides of it. If somebody doesn't understand somebody else's culture, try to educate them, try to move people along, move people forward, and be in this together. I think better together is something that LinkedIn says, and it actually fits for right now, and it fits for everything. But we got to work together. Let's stick with working together. What type of opportunities are you currently looking for that people that are watching can reach out to you and possibly say, this is a good fit, and let's try to work on something together?
Yeah, absolutely. As a minority entrepreneur and executive, I'd really like to be a part of discussions and, sit on boards of other companies that may not be as diverse as the ones that I work with right now, to bring a different voice to the board. I'm also looking to increase my reach as a speaker. I've spoken on a number of stages, mostly about empowering others in regards to motivational speaking, but I also do speak to a lesser extent on legal issues and sports issues. That's me personally. Professionally via Mediabundance, we're looking to work with any company that has a idea that's going to better the world. It can be in any space. We have enough credibility, background, and experience to help accelerate or elevate that company, and we'll know, where to connect individuals to get there faster.
Get you on the board of some companies and help you with the thought leadership aspect of it, and also, I think you mentioned before we talked the tech companies that are possibly growing and to help with consulting, right? I mean, those are the types of companies you want to work with and help progress. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Tech startups, we're big on innovation. I think you actually mentioned it, and that's a huge passion of ours. I hate the term disruptor. It's so overused in our industry. Charlie, I know you're smiling because you agree. But innovation is what changes the world, right? It's what moves us forward. It's what makes everybody's daily life easier. So to the extent that there are entrepreneurs that have innovative ideas, and they're looking for guidance or those with experience on how to, get them to market, or maybe it's on the market and folks aren't just, it's not catching on yet. Those are the companies that we're looking to work with.
And it's a long process too, to have somebody with the energy, enthusiasm that you have, I think is key. I mean, you've been from the beginning, you've started your own company, you've worked your way through. Can you talk a little bit about that, like, that hustle, that grind from starting from nothing to kind of building things up and getting some momentum?
Yeah, the first thing that you have to do when it comes to that is have almost irrational confidence, right? I'm going to use a sports analogy because I come from the basketball world. Some of these guys may not be the popular players, but guys like Gilbert Arenas and Nick Young that will, take 1,000 shots and miss 95, but they're going to continue to shoot. That's the kind of confidence that you need as an entrepreneur. Because guess what? Eventually, you're going to become Steph Curry. You're going to start hitting, 45, 48% from three, which in the real world is terrible, right? But in the NBA, by NBA standards, it's pretty high. So you have to you have to take risks. Number one, you have to have the confidence, to fall down, and you have to use every single loss as a lesson. If you lose for some reason, or you don't reach your goal and you don't learn anything from it, then there was no reason to even start to begin with. Because if you take nothing away from it, you're not going to improve. And I think for me, that's something that playing sports, growing up and professionally, that I had to learn. I realized that, when I was a young prosecutor, that, this is a great job to learn, but I am outgrowing this field. It's not fulfilling my every need. And it was a good thing. I felt like it was, I was a public servant. It was honorable. It was comfortable. Everyone said, you'd be a fool to leave that job. People will give their right arm to have this job. But I think the people that make changes in this world, they have to be willing to step out of their comfort zone and take a risk. And everything you do should be going towards your goal. I think one mistake that we make as a people is that we look at the world so myopically, and we think about what's in front of us right now and, how we're going to sustain ourselves. What I like to do is I like to set big goals, down the road, and then try to figure out, reverse engineer all of the little things that I can do on a daily basis to get towards that big goal. So if my big goal is to impact the world, well, how am I going to do that, right? I'm gonna speak to people. I'm gonna connect with them, right? Either via, podcasts, panels, one-on-one interviews like this, mentoring, right? I'm gonna impact people that way, because guess what? Now there may be something or someone that I connect with here that may take that message and give it to someone else. So every day I'm looking for those type of opportunities, right? If my goal is to be a doctor, right? If I want to be in traditional medicine because I want to help someone, then even if I'm in high school or college, I'm going to figure out who the top doctors in the field that I want to be in are, and I'm going to reach out. And guess what? If they don't answer or they're not willing to help me, that doesn't mean I should not mimic them, because they're still where I want to be. So I'm going to research, what they did to get to where they are.
I think that you bring up a good point there, right? And it fits nicely with what we're doing here at Entre. The networking and growing those relationships. How do you look at networking? How do you look at building those relationships? How do you follow up, and the importance of them?
Networking, we've all heard the overused phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I challenge that. It's both, right? You need to know something, and you also need to know someone. Networking is extremely important, and I love what you guys are doing at Entre. You make it so much easier for individuals because you're putting like-minded people, and I've been to a number of the events that you guys have had, like-minded people into a room. But really, my biggest advice in terms of networking is be genuine, be yourself. I see so many people that they come in with this facade of what they think an entrepreneur should be, or what they think an attorney should be, or what they think a sports agent should be. Forget about that. If folks want a carbon copy of who they are or what the industry is, then they're not going to pick you, right? What sets you apart is who you are. Bring into a networking event all of your experiences and values. Always stay true to yourself, because that's something that folks can see through right away, right? Be genuine, be honest. Don't try to inflate your background. Again, another thing that folks are going to be able to see through right away. And then the other thing, the most important thing, if you're in a room and you speak to 15 different people and you have a 2-minute conversation with them and you move on, you're not going to have an impact on that. I don't care if you go to an event to 1,000 people. I'd rather go to an event and speak to 5 people for 30 minutes each and really get to know them, because guess what? They're going to remember you and you're going to remember them. And a lot of people make the mistake that once they make that connection, they have this business card, they have this number. That's only the beginning. Mm-hmm. The follow-up, right? It's just like, anybody that's, dated, I'm in a serious relationship now, I'm engaged, you're married, Charlie. We wouldn't be where we are without follow-up game, right? So you have to look at it professionally the same exact way. You have to be persistent to let people know that you are interested, just like as if you were dating. So one of the hints, or one of the tips that I have for those that are young, or maybe a little bit more introverted than some more extroverted people, is be more interested than interesting. Individuals love to talk about themselves. Ask them tough questions that are not intimate, obviously. Ask them about their backgrounds. Show genuine interest in who they are and what they're doing, and then take notes. Right after you leave an event, I like to create a note sheet right on my iPhone. There's times during events that I'll make a quick bathroom run, and what I'm doing in the bathroom is writing in my notepad, and I just met Charlie. He's from Leaders Live. He has on a white shirt, so I remember. And you have little notes, so that way when I email you the next day, I'll have a nice, interesting point about what we spoke to that's going to help cue your brain back directly to who I am, how I made you feel, right? Because people never forget. They forget what you said, but they never forget how you make them feel, how I made you feel, and what we spoke about. So I follow up right away, and I try to build a genuine relationship, right? People can see right through if you're just building a baseline, trying to get in, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and, what you can do for them. Build a genuine relationship, and I promise you that person is going to introduce you to 100 more people and give you more value than they would if you just, ask, hey, can you introduce me to the next person? Yeah,
give me more about the how you made me feel at a networking event in any sort of way, but the emotional connection and, furthering the relationship there.
Yeah, it's human nature. It's human nature. We're all kind of a composition of our emotions and experiences. So it's extremely important to be yourself, be, loosen up a little bit. Obviously you don't want to be obnoxious. If there's, alcohol involved, you don't want to be the person that's over drinking. But the way you make someone feel is, put a smile on someone's face, offer to be helpful, offer to be of assistance. Ask people about, what they did to differentiate themselves in their field, because that's going to also bring about an emotional reaction from them in terms of how they felt in those situations, rather than just saying, hey, where'd you go to school, right? I mean, you can look that up on LinkedIn. Ask questions that you can't readily find the answer online. That's where you're going to get more so into the emotional stuff and be able to connect. And then I promise you, when you ask those questions, we're not all that different, and you're going to have some similar experience that you're going to be able to relate to that person with. And then when you're able to make that connection, that's where folks will remember how you made them feel, right? Whether it's nostalgia, whether it's just pure joy, whether it's, sadness and strife from some difficulty that you may have had either in your life or professionally. I'm not saying to get super deep the first time you meet someone, but it is important to get a little deeper than what's on the surface.
Yeah, no, I think it's the saying is like, no one's going to remember what you say, but the way they made you feel is the way that you'll be remembered. And
and I think I'm remiss for not remembering who said that quote. It's a very famous quote.
So we got a question from Nathan before we wrap up here, and there are investors that are not willing to sign NDA, non-compete when showing my business. You see the question right there. How do I prevent them from stealing my idea?
Speaking as an attorney, you don't. Speaking as an entrepreneur and someone that's been in your position, and then also on the other side, where I kind of have a rule of thumb that I don't sign NDAs per se. Most of them are overbroad, right? That's the issue with them. The main thing is, if you're dealing with an investor or a business coach or a mentor that you have a concern that they're going to steal your idea, then you shouldn't be dealing with them to begin with, right? Most credible investors are not looking to steal your idea. If you truly have a doubt, then it's not worth the risk. That would be my advice on that.
Yeah. And we actually have one more question asking for your email. I think somebody possibly wants to collaborate with you. Is there an email that maybe you could share with the community in case?
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm at Moreno at mediabundance.com. That's Moreno at mediabundance.com. That's media and abundance as one word with one A, or at dmorenoesq@gmail.com.
That's great. And Nadal, our producer, can you put Kathleen's comment up there? I think that's a great comment we should leave off with. Injustice anywhere is justice threatened everywhere. Who else said it but David Moreno? I like that a lot. Let's leave off with your words to live by, personal mantra or ethos that you could share with the community.
Yeah, words to live by. Absolutely be the change you wish to see in the world. Lead by example. I know we're going into a little bit of cliches, but if we rewind the tape into some of the things that I said and spent some time on, is everything that you do is working towards your bigger picture. I'm a big legacy guy, and those who have a legacy, we remember the folks that inspired others, right? There've been a number of important people in this world. When we think about legacy, however, when we say that person's legacy, we're generally talking about someone that inspired a number of other people. And whether that's through your actions or through your words, be consistent. Be honest, seek out good mentors, and always be working towards your goal. And the other thing I'll say is stay the course, because we're almost always right there and we give up too quickly.
Stay the course, don't give up. I like that. All good stuff, all positive stuff. David, I appreciate your time. We're going to wrap up here. And if anybody wants to reach out, hit David up on LinkedIn. You got his email, and let's make some partnerships happen.
Yeah, let's do it, guys. I appreciate everybody. Charlie, thank you so much. I hope you're well in the quarantine. I'm looking forward to seeing you soon and coming to Founders Night.
Absolutely. All right, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you.